The Frostcrawler is the newest Season 19 Level 10 Grand Prize added into Roblox Jailbreak, and well, I have some things to say about it. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been going around the community, seeing what people have to say about the Frostcrawler, and I've got a really good general idea of what people think, and I actually have multiple different scenarios that might end up playing out when this vehicle is officially being traded in the hundreds or so. So today we're going to be discussing whether the Frostcrawler is actually going to be worth it for you to obtain. So unlike other seasons, Season 19 actually just introduced the Carbonara, and this was actually hinted at when Azimo said there was going to be one more thing, and with the crate showing up on the shore of the oil rig. So that is exactly what I always thought it was going to be. So we already knew that it was going to be a limited, and well, I'm very surprised that the Carbonara ended up winning. Feel free to check out my previous review on the Carbonara. But anyways, there's 2 limiteds in this season, and we're going to be discussing if it's even worthwhile for you to grind the Frostcrawler. So right off the bat, one of the most interesting things about the Frostcrawler is it's completely different than what was originally proposed. If you take a look at the Jailbreak Creations post for the Frostcrawler, you're actually going to notice that it had tank tracks. Yes, this vehicle was supposed to be a mini tank or an armored personnel carrier. So we've actually had something similar with the Goliath, but this was supposed to be its sort of brother, except with tank tracks. Unfortunately, a last minute change kind of messed things up, and we ended up getting a 6-wheeler instead. So that alone actually has a lot of different impacts on this vehicle's value, because in a lot of ways, the Frostcrawler is very similar to the Goliath. I've seen some gameplay for the Frostcrawler, and I've got to say, even though it was technically upgraded to the 6-wheeler at first, it actually still retains about the same top speed as a tank. So even if this might seem a good thing that it actually has wheels, in my opinion, this vehicle was not necessarily created for that, and so it kind of starts falling apart there. Now here's what I will give credit to the Frostcrawler. The one cool thing about it, and this was shown in the video that I was actually given to kind of review this vehicle, it has a tow hitch. Now the only other vehicle that I basically use for the tow hitch is basically the tow truck. And I have to say, if you own a tow truck, you already know how fun it is. Basically, if you want a Goliath and you want a tow truck all in one, then this is a very good vehicle. But hear me out, we're going to be getting into more of the kind of upsides and downsides to this vehicle. So basically, this is actually going to be more of a meme vehicle than actually something practical you're going to be using in trading. And well, the same goes for the main game. I feel if you're going to be pulling this out, you're going to become a very big target, because it's not quite the same size of the Goliath. I've seen both, and while the Frostcrawler has a little bit of a smaller form factor, but don't get me wrong, it's still above average. I would say it's probably on par with something like the monster truck, except it has a third wheel on both sides. So here's my experience with the handling for this vehicle. It is very similar to the monster truck in the suspension. The monster truck can go over terrain fairly well. It can handle some bumpy surfaces, and I do like one thing about the monster truck, even though it's not the best limited, it does have no problem with the train tracks, and I very rarely can get the monster truck to flip. Like if I'm going to do the power plant road, which I don't advise this, but if you're doing power plant, and let's say you're going around the museum, you might know there's like a little bit of a drop. I really like when that suspension comes in there, and the same goes for the Goliath. The Goliath has the extra suspension as well, and it really just helps make the ride very smooth, and so that's my experience with the Frostcrawler as well. It's going to be the exact same experience driving it. So that's the one thing I kind of like about the Frostcrawler. It's got the good suspension. But hear me out. The top speed is the next thing I'm going to get into. So everything I said up to this point might be a little bit surprising. You might be asking yourself, how have I been saying good things about this vehicle? Because believe it or not, most of the community does not like the Frostcrawler. I'm going to be honest with you. Out of maybe 70 people I asked, I want to say about 58-ish said they don't care about the Frostcrawler whatsoever. So hear me out. I'm going to discuss its trading value in just a bit. But basically, the top speed of the Frostcrawler is currently the only thing letting it down. In the gameplay video, it was showing about 100 miles per hour consistently. You can actually go to the trailer when the Frostcrawler was first introduced, and you can see Azimo using the vehicle as well. And yes, you can see it's literally a 100 mile per hour speed limit. So that is exactly consistent with what I was getting, and I believe it has to do with this vehicle originally supposed to have tracks, so then the top speed wouldn't have mattered, but this isn't going to be a great vehicle for grinding. And besides the tow hitch, it's not going to be the best vehicle for really much else besides trolling. So yeah, here is where it starts to get a little bit complicated. I'm going to discuss whether it's actually worth grinding for the Frostcrawler now, because we have the Carbonera. The Carbonera is by far the easiest vehicle you can get. It's super fast to actually grind as a cop. I discussed this in my last video, but basically, if you want to earn a lot of cash, I wouldn't actually suggest grinding as a criminal, although I do offer 3 VIP servers on jailbreaktrading.net. Just click on the menu section, and then you'll easily find the VIP service tab, or go to jailbreakvipserver.com and it actually redirects you to that page. But anyways, my best experience is I was able to get a substantially larger number from playing as a cop and hopping across servers. And what I will admit, it's not always consistent, but in the servers that I'm finding criminals with about 15k bounty, 20k bounty, I think that's actually the max. So they actually increase the amount of bounty you're getting. And in a lot of ways, I'm actually finding it very easy to get the Carbonera just for actually playing on the cop team. So if you want either of these limiteds, the Carbonera is the easiest one, whereas the Frostcrawler relies exclusively on contracts. So the contracts itself are not necessarily hard, but they are very tedious. If you want to do contracts, you know exactly what ride you're in, and you're not going to always be able to log in every single day. Now, I have discussed a little bit of a way you can use an auto contract joiner. I might actually link that in the description of this video. The way contracts work is as soon as you join in, the contracts refresh. So meaning if you start the season, the contracts start the second you join the game, but then after about 16 or 24 hours pass, you need to log in again to the game to actually get the contracts to refresh. And so if you want to go that route, yes, it is very tedious to log in daily just to get the contracts to renew again. And on top of that, we haven't discussed the quests, because the quests themselves, or the contracts, they are kind of made frustrating as much as possible, because the whole goal of them is to retain player retention. That's the only reason the battle pass exists in this game. It's basically the same as Fortnite. Quite simply, the old one was very easy. You could finish it in one day. You could get to level 50 as a cop in one day and level 50 as a criminal the other day. Whereas this tedious system is the way Jailbreak is trying to keep all their players. And so if you want to go this route, hear me out. The Frostcrawler just doesn't seem worth the time. I'm gonna be honest. I've just been more relaxed about the Frostcrawler this season because it doesn't seem all that compelling, because you have the Carbonera. The Carbonera, I've discussed in my previous video, is going to have the value ranging from 1.5 million to 3 million. And then you have the Frostcrawler, which, combining everything I said about this vehicle, you will know that it's mostly kind of meaningless. You don't really need the Frostcrawler, and it doesn't necessarily have a purpose in the game. And so that's actually why the Frostcrawler is going to start at about the same valuation, if not even lower than the Carbonera, because Carbonera is a supercar. I will let you guys know on one metric in Jailbreak, and that is that the current player base loves flashy supercars. And if there wasn't better proof of that, I could just redirect you to last season where we had the Longhorn. Now, I didn't discuss the Longhorn because absolutely no one cared about it, although I might make a video on it because it's kind of a meme. But basically, the younger player base of this game doesn't want cars that are used to tow like wheelbarrows and tractors and stuff, and that's kind of the impression I got with the Longhorn. It's kind of just an old car, and even though it was a convertible, there was really no saving it. So I'm gonna be honest, on my website it's 2,500,000, but I'm actually more consistently getting 2 million for it. And following along with that route, the one thing going for the Frostcrawler right now is the tow hitch. I really like the idea of the tow hitch because it's basically the same as the rope. If you've ever used the rope on something like an escape bot, a helicopter, little bird, UFO, whatever you want, or I should add Blackhawk to that too, because that's probably one of the most popular helicopters in the game. I feel that's the only thing going for the Frostcrawler, because I can guarantee that the top speed is miserable. If you're going to be using power plant runs with this thing, it was like about 3,500 with it, and the closest example I can give with my own footage is the Goliath. Again, this vehicle is going to be a carbon clone of the Goliath. It has the 3 wheels on both sides as the Goliath, but the only thing it is different in is it just has a slightly smaller form factor, because again, it wasn't intended to have the design as it is now. But here's the thing, I think it would have been even more worthless with tank tracks, but really it is whatever. I think that I really like the idea of the Frostcrawler, but man, the other options, which we got the Carbonera, but I would have really loved to see a Polaris V8 added in the game. I think it would have been right around the holidays when people would have started getting it. So maybe a week or two from now on is when people would have gotten the Polaris V8. The way I would balance the vehicle, even though it would be flying, like it could just be made not spawnable. So that's my opinion on the Frostcrawler, I don't think it's going to be a great vehicle. I think I've seen most people say it's going to be in the 2 million range, it's going to be in the 2.5 million range. So here's the deal on jailbreaktrading.net. I have the ranges listed for the Frostcrawler at about 1.5 million to 3 million. But the 3 million, as you might assume, is the absolute tops you'd probably be able to get for it. And note, that's basically the same as the Carbonera. So if you want the Frostcrawler, note, you're going to have to spend double the effort than it takes just hopping servers as a cop like you would do just to get the Carbonera. But if you still want the Frostcrawler, yeah, I don't think it's just going to have much demand. I've just seen the gameplay. It's not very entertaining. And if you've seen the Goliath, you know exactly what the Frostcrawler is going to be. I feel it's going to be okay. It's not going to be groundbreaking or anything. It's just going to be decent enough to be a tradable limited, but it's not going to be anything impressive. And so it's just going to sort of exist. That's my opinion on the Frostcrawler. I have not seen anyone actually anticipating to trade for one. So the way I actually know limiteds are going to be good, and hear me out, this is kind of a really good strategy you could use. If you're active in the Jailbreak creation subreddit, if you're active on the Jailbreak community on X or Twitter, you can see when people like a limited card that's going to be added to the game, they're willing to actually basically reserve spots in trades and do massive overpays for that item. For example, the most recent item that I've seen this with is the Power 1. And Power 1, rightfully so, it's a great vehicle. I think that is one of the best seasonal prizes we have gotten in a wall, and it was really good because it was over the summer. Everyone wants a Power 1 right now, and it's probably due because of the new player surge recently, just because the new oil rig heist actually did something good for once. I will be honest, I haven't discussed the oil rig lately, but I really like the oil rig. It's a very good robbery. I enjoyed playing it. A little bit confusing at first with the whole boat thing only allowed actually getting to the oil rig. I just see a lot of people basically going towards the oil rig and just dying with a helicopter or car. And once I was actually done with the oil rig, there's for some reason not a cruiser that spawns at the oil rig. So if you don't have the jet ski or the new speedboat that was added, then that might be confusing, because I've actually been grinding on a few alternate accounts just to get the Carbonera. I want to get like 3 or 4 copies just to be double sure, but I feel it's going to be a very respectable limited in comparison to the Frostcrawler. So my final conclusion on the Frostcrawler, if you're grinding for it, I will be honest, I would just take your time with it. I feel the only thing you might get if you get it early and you really stress yourself out every single day, you might get like a 5 million overpay at most. And what even is that? Basically the equivalent of the M12. I don't think I've seen people really wanting the M12. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the Frostcrawler is really going to be in that range when it first releases. So even if you're the first top 25 leaderboard player, I would be impressed if you're managing to get even a lot for the Frostcrawler just based off the community response. I think I'm happy that the Carbonara was added though. This is the only lifesaver of the Frostcrawler, but it's also the biggest downside for the Frostcrawler, because if we just got one limited this season, then people would only trade for the Frostcrawler. But now the game has changed. A lot wider perspective, and people are going to want the supercar. People are not going to want the Frostcrawlers. But real quick, I do have respect to the model for the vehicle. I really love the original design. It's just a shame that the tracks aren't at it. It would have been really good looking if it actually had the tracks, and it would have probably made it even less practical, but at least it would have had better acceleration, because yes, you get about 100 miles per hour top speed, but then it's like the acceleration is the same as the Goliath. And if you've seen anything from the background and gameplay of this video, you can tell the Goliath is not so great. So basically, that summarized my thoughts on the Frostcrawler. I hope I was able to answer all questions related to its trading value and whether it's actually worthwhile to get. But in a lot of ways, if there's ever going to be a sudden spike in the Frostcrawler, I'll update this video on it. I'll probably make a second one. But right now, from the time I'm posting this vehicle, about a week or two before people start getting the Frostcrawler in masses, besides the few select testers that the Frostcrawler is given out to, yeah, it's not looking great for this vehicle. And I feel if you're a trader, I would just skip this vehicle, honestly. You're not losing out on much. Pretty much I would look at it this way. If you want a new limited, just get the Carbonera, because it's probably going to be the same, if not better, than the Frostcrawler. So again, it's interesting that the Frostcrawler ended up winning. And well, at first I didn't think it was that bad until I just saw that performance, and everything just about it has absolutely fell off. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Frostcrawler. Just kind of as an overview, I don't see this vehicle being also much practical. Maybe for a transport, but then that's kind of useless, because if you wanted this vehicle for transport, just use the Goliath if it were the SWAT van, because I think the SWAT van would have just as many seats, if not even more, and it would actually have a usable performance. And well, actually, that's a Game Pass vehicle. So my second best option would be the monster truck. And if not, the best option up there would be the Blackhawk as well for transportation. So I get it. There's so many things I have to say about the Frostcaller, but my first impressions are basically that. Besides it being a big vehicle, that's really about it. That's the one thing I can really compliment it on. And maybe the hoe hitch, and well, that pretty much summarizes the Frostcrawler. So anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap up here. As always, the value will be updated on jailbreaktraining.net. So if you're watching this about like 3 months from now, the value will probably be more established, but right now it's just not looking all so great for the Frostcrawler. But that being said, if you are new to my channel, make sure to subscribe. And if you like the video, make sure to like, and happy holidays to everyone watching.